Out in rural Georgia, where vast fields stretch endlessly and mornings begin with quiet calm, a dangerous gang thought they had found an easy victim. Marcus Owens, a quiet, aging black farmer. They assumed he was alone, vulnerable, an easy mark. But what they didn't realize was the fierce battle behind his calm eyes, or the unshakable discipline in his every move. They had no idea that the very land he now tended had once been soaked in blood. One call to his old Navy SEAL team turned the tables completely. By nightfall, the gang's attack had collapsed, and the reckoning Marcus delivered was just beginning. Before we dive deeper, drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. Before dawn broke over Georgia's sky, Marcus Owens woke, his body still tuned to military precision. It was exactly 4:30 a.m. He lay still for a moment, soaking in the peaceful silence of his farmhouse and the cool breeze drifting through the slightly open window. His bedroom was simple but cozy, an oak dresser against the wall, and his bed facing the window overlooking the fields. The only decoration was a dusty framed photo of his old SEAL team resting on the nightstand. Marcus swung his legs over the bed, joints aching slightly at 52, a daily reminder of his years in service. Yet, he moved with purpose, pulling on worn jeans and a faded blue work shirt. His morning routine was like clockwork, as precise as any military mission, and it brought him calm. In the kitchen, he brewed coffee while lacing up his steel-toed boots. The rich aroma filled the room as he stood by the sink, gazing out across his 20 acres. The darkness softened, revealing rows of corn and soybeans stretching toward the tree line. His small herd of cattle waited patiently in the east pasture. "Another day," he muttered, pouring coffee into his favorite ceramic mug, a gift from his son Therese years ago. The familiar weight grounded him. Stepping onto his porch, Marcus inhaled deeply. The morning air was thick with dew and the sweet scent of freshly cut hay from his neighbor's farm. This land was his sanctuary now, a stark contrast to the chaos of his past life. Here, he found purpose in growth, not destruction. He made his way to the barn, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. The chickens stirred, pecking at the ground. He scattered feed, counting heads out of habit. 15 hens, 1 rooster, all accounted for. Then something caught his eye near the fence line. Unfamiliar tire tracks pressed into the soft earth. Marcus crouched down, inspecting the deep treads. These weren't from his truck or any regular deliveries. Fresh, likely left overnight. The tracks showed a vehicle that had stopped, turned, and fled in haste. His combat instincts, never far from the surface, flared to life. He walked the perimeter, spotting more signs, tire tracks near the back gate, and discarded cigarette butts, not his brand. Someone had been watching his farm. The rest of his chores were done with a sharp edge of alertness. His mind kept circling back to those tracks. This was no accident. Someone had been casing his land. As the sun climbed, Marcus worked the fields, checking irrigation and soil moisture. The hard labor steadied his nerves, but the feeling of being watched never left. By late afternoon, sweat drenched his shirt as he fixed a broken fence. When the sun dipped low, he finally headed inside. Washing up, he prepared a simple meal. Fresh garden vegetables and chicken. Familiar routine, but his movements were tense, senses heightened. Then the first unusual sound came. Engines roaring, multiple vehicles speeding down his private road. Marcus switched off the kitchen light, moving silently to the window. His heart quickened, but hands stayed steady as he peeked through the curtain. Headlights sliced through the dark, harsh beams flooding his yard. 3 pickup trucks rumbled toward the house, their engines growling. Behind them, more vehicles approached. Marcus's tactical mind raced, quickly sizing up the threat. The trucks spread out, encircling his property with practiced precision. This was no random act of violence. This was a calculated, coordinated assault. Men jumped from the vehicles, weapons in hand. The orange flicker of torches danced through the darkness. Marcus's hands clenched tightly as he watched at least a dozen armed men advance across his land, the same land he had bought after retiring, hoping to find peace, the very soil he had tended for 5 years, striving to grow life after a past filled with death. Now, they were here to tear it all down. Through the window, their faces came into focus, hatred glowing under the torchlight as they spread around his house and barn. Rifles and shotguns in hand, some carried flaming torches, a terrifying image from a nightmare long past. Moving silently through his darkened home, Marcus's years of SEAL training took over. Each step was deliberate, avoiding creaky floorboards. He had to reach the barn, fast. Suddenly, glass shattered. A bottle smashed through the kitchen window, flames erupting as burning gasoline spread across the floor. The sharp scent of smoke filled the air. Without hesitation, Marcus slipped out the back door, low in the shadows. The attackers were spreading out, their voices clear in the night air. "Burn it all down," one shouted. "Show him his place." The words tightened his jaw, but Marcus stayed focused. Just 20 yards to the barn, he could make it. The darkness was his ally, and moving unseen was a skill he'd mastered over years. Just as he reached the barn door, gunfire erupted. Shots tore through his house, glass and wood exploding under the assault. Marcus slipped inside, heading straight to a hidden panel in the wall. Behind it lay a waterproof case, his M4 carbine, magazines, and body armor, insurance he hoped never to need. Suddenly, the barn doors crashed open. Flashlight beams cut through the gloom as 2 men stepped in, boots crunching on hay. Marcus smelled gasoline. They planned to burn the barn too. "Check the loft," one ordered. "Make sure he's not hiding up there." Like a shadow, Marcus melted into the darkness, hands steady on his rifle. The attackers were sloppy, untrained, separated from their group, and vulnerable. A chilling sound split the night, a cow's death scream. They were slaughtering his livestock now. Rage flared in Marcus's chest, but he controlled it. Emotion got you killed. The first attacker never saw him coming. Marcus struck from behind, one hand clamped over the man's mouth, the other around his throat. The struggle was brief, ending with a sharp crack as Marcus twisted, severing the spine with practiced precision. The second man spun around, raising his shotgun, but Marcus was already moving. He slammed into the attacker's midsection, driving him against the barn wall. The shotgun blast missed wildly, deafening in the close space. Marcus struck twice, throat and temple, dropping his opponent like a stone. Outside, more vehicles arrived. Marcus counted at least 15 attackers now, their masked faces lit by torchlight as they vandalized his barn with hateful graffiti. The raw ugliness of their hatred was on full display. Suddenly, bursts of automatic fire tore through the night, not aimed at Marcus. He recognized the sound. Tyrese's M249 saw. His old friend had arrived. "Kant!" someone shouted. The attackers scattered under heavy suppressing fire. Marcus used the chaos, moving to a firing position at the barn window. 2 attackers tried to flank Tyrese, but Marcus dropped them with precise double taps. Training never fades. Aim, squeeze, confirm. Pain exploded in his left shoulder as a bullet struck. Marcus rolled away, blood soaking his shirt. The wound was serious but survivable. He'd faced worse. "Marcus!" Tyrese's voice rang out across the farm. "Give me cover fire." Grimacing, Marcus pushed himself up, ignoring the burning pain. He laid down suppressing fire, forcing the attackers behind their vehicles. Tyrese charged through the gap, surprisingly agile. "Damn, brother," he said, eyes narrowing at Marcus's wound. "You're hit." "Had worse paper cuts," Marcus grunted, pain intensifying. "They're pulling back." Engines roared to life as the attackers fled into the night. Tyrese kept firing until the last vehicle disappeared. The aftermath was devastating. Marcus's house burned, his livestock slaughtered. Hateful slurs defaced his barn. The peace he had built lay in ruins. "How'd you know?" Marcus asked as Tyrese carefully examined his wound. "I've been watching those bastards," Tyrese said, his voice tight with anger. "Knew they were planning something, just didn't expect it to be this big." He helped Marcus to his feet. "This isn't over, brother. Not by a long shot." Marcus gazed out over his burning property. The land he'd poured his heart into, now scarred by hatred. The peaceful farmer inside mourned the destruction, but the warrior he thought he'd left behind was awakening. These men had brought war right to his doorstep. As the sun rose, painting the smoke-filled sky with angry reds, Marcus sat on the broken steps of his porch. Tyrese bandaged his shoulder with practiced hands. The morning light revealed the full scope of devastation. Blackened buildings, slaughtered livestock scattered across blood-stained fields, and hateful messages etched deep into the land. 20 years of work, Marcus whispered, voice rough from smoke and exhaustion. Tyrese stood beside him, rifle close. "We'll rebuild it all, brother. Every single bit." Marcus winced, touching his bandaged shoulder. The pain kept him focused, held back the rage. 4 dead attackers lay covered near the barn. 2 more had escaped wounded. The rest had fled like cowards into the night. "The sheriff's department should have been here hours ago," Tyrese said, checking his watch. "I called it right after the shooting stopped." "They come when they want to," Marcus replied, knowing how things really worked around here. But even he was surprised when Sheriff Curtis Dade's patrol car finally rolled up around 7 a.m., taking his time inspecting the wreckage. Dade was a tall man with graying hair and an easy smile, one that never quite reached his eyes. He walked with the confidence of a man used to unquestioned authority. 2 deputies flanked him, clearly uncomfortable. "Morning, Marcus," Dade said casually, as if standing amid a war zone was nothing unusual. "Heard you had some trouble last night." Marcus stood slowly, ignoring the pain. "One way to put it, Sheriff. My property's destroyed, my livestock slaughtered, and I've got 4 dead men who tried to kill me." Dade glanced at the covered bodies, then at bullet holes and scorch marks. His expression stayed carefully neutral. "Looks like quite a mess. But are you sure this wasn't just some dispute gone wrong? Maybe over property lines or grazing rights?" Tyrese stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Are you serious? Look around. Look at what they wrote on the ground." Dade raised a placating hand. "Now, Mr. Jackson, I get you're upset, but let's not jump to conclusions. Could have been drunk kids causing trouble, making things look worse." Marcus pointed at his ruined house. "Drunk kids with military-grade weapons using tactics. Who knew exactly where to hit me?" His voice stayed steady through sheer will. "This was a coordinated attack, Sheriff. They came to kill me." "That's a serious accusation," Dade said, writing nothing in his notepad. "Did you recognize any of them? Get any names?" "They wore masks," Marcus replied, "but I can describe their vehicles, provide shell casings, tire tracks." The sheriff closed his notepad. "I'll file a report for trespassing and vandalism. Maybe we can track down some of these troublemakers. Have a talk with them about respecting private property." Marcus stared, disbelief washing over him. "Trespassing? They tried to lynch me, murdered my livestock, burned racist slurs into my land." Dade's tone turned patronizing. "Let's not make this about race. That just stirs up trouble no one wants. File an insurance claim for damages, and we'll keep an eye out for suspicious activity." Tyrese stepped forward, anger flashing, but Marcus caught his arm. He knew that look. The sheriff had already decided which version of the story he'd accept. Pushing harder would only make things worse. "Thank you for your time, Sheriff," Marcus said quietly, the words tasting like ash. Dade tipped his hat. "Sorry about your property, Marcus. Times like these you might consider selling. Lots of buyers interested in good farmland." With that final jab, the sheriff and deputies returned to their vehicles and drove off. Marcus waited until they were gone, then sank heavily back onto the steps. His shoulder throbbed with his pulse. That racist piece of Tyrese started. Save it, Marcus cut him off. We both knew how this would go. They sat in silence, watching the sun climb. The smoke had cleared, but the stench of burnt buildings and dead animals lingered. Marcus thought about the years he'd spent building this place, trying to create peace after decades of war. Now violence has found me again, and the law won't help, Marcus said quietly. Tyrese looked at him, reading the familiar fire in his friend's eyes. So, what's the move? He asked finally. Marcus stood carefully, decision made. Get me my phone. Tyrese retrieved Marcus's cell, one of the few things left untouched after the attack. Marcus scrolled through contacts until he found the number he hadn't called in years. Some connections never break. He pressed dial and waited. 2 rings before a familiar voice answered, Sarah Adams. I need you here, now, Marcus said, steady but urgent. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the ravaged farmland as a black SUV kicked up dust pulling up the gravel driveway. Marcus and Tyrese watched from the porch, grim, expectant. Sarah Adams stepped out first. Silver hair pulled tight in a bun, tactical pants, and dark shirt ready for action. Bobby Tran emerged from the passenger side, carrying a heavy metal case, his face tight with concern. Ezekiel Brooks unfolded from the back seat, scanning the property with sharp, practiced eyes. My God, Marcus, Sarah said, surveying the burnt barn and slaughtered livestock. Her usual commanding presence softened with genuine pain for her old friend. Marcus nodded slowly, jaw clenched. Appreciate you coming so quick. Bobby set down his case and carefully embraced Marcus, mindful of the bandaged shoulder. Brother, you should have called sooner. Didn't want to drag you all back into this life, Marcus replied quietly. Ezekiel placed a steady hand on Marcus's shoulder. We're family. This is what family does. Inside Marcus's living room, now a makeshift command center, Bobby unpacked his equipment with practiced speed. Laptops, surveillance gear, communication devices spread across the dining table. Sarah stood by the window, already mapping sight lines and defensive positions in her mind. Tell us everything, Sarah commanded, voice sharp and familiar from their SEAL days. Marcus and Tyrese recounted every detail. Bobby's fingers flew across keyboards, pulling up local police reports and social media activity. Ezekiel took notes, tracking patterns with expert precision. Sons of Purity, Bobby said, turning a laptop screen toward the group. They've been growing bolder over the last 6 months. Their leader is Wyatt Cole. The screen showed a man in his 40s with cold eyes and closely cropped hair, always front and center at white supremacist rallies. I know that face, Tyrese growled. He was here last night, hanging back while his boys did the dirty work. Sarah leaned over Bobby's shoulder, studying the intelligence. They've got a pattern. Small farms, minority owners, escalating violence. But this attack on you, Marcus, is different, more coordinated. Bobby hooked up extra monitors, weaving a web of information. Surveillance footage from nearby roads filled the screens. Ezekiel compared tire tracks and morning photos against vehicle registrations. Got something, Bobby announced after an intense hour. Cole's group operates out of an old warehouse off Route 16. Used to be a farm supply store. Satellite images appeared, showing the layout. They're careful, but not careful enough. Their communications are encrypted, but it's amateur hour. I'm in. Sarah studied the warehouse. 3 entry points: loading dock on the east, main entrance north, emergency exit west. Tactical plans already forming in her mind. Ezekiel returned from scouting Marcus's property perimeter. Fresh tracks matching last night's. They've been watching for weeks. He spread a map, pointing out back roads used for stealthy access. Marcus stood at the table, commanding attention. The farmer was gone, replaced by the warrior they'd known for decades. We need confirmation on Cole's location, Marcus said. Bobby nodded, typing rapidly. Already on it. I've tapped their cell networks. Cole's phone is pinging off towers near the warehouse. Sarah watched surveillance feeds. He's running it like a command center. At least 20 members coming and going. Heavy weapons. This isn't some backwoods hate group. No, Marcus agreed grimly. Feels more organized, professional. Suddenly, Bobby's system beeped. New info flooding the screens. Got video confirmation. Cole just arrived at the warehouse 10 minutes ago. Live footage showed Cole's truck pulling into the loading dock. The team leaned closer, eyes sharp. The warehouse buzzed with activity. Men moving crates, prepping vehicles, weapons on display. They're planning something bigger, Tyrese said, voice tight with anger. This wasn't just a one-off attack. Sarah straightened, determination clear in her eyes. We need eyes on that warehouse. Full surveillance, close coverage. We do this right, clean. Find out exactly what we're dealing with before we make any moves. Marcus nodded, trust in his old team shining through his expression. These were the people he'd gone to war with, the ones who'd never let him down. Now, standing in his kitchen, they were ready for another battle. Bobby continued monitoring the feeds, setting automated alerts. Ezekiel readied his tracking gear to establish observation posts. Sarah sketched preliminary tactical plans while Tyrese checked their weapons. The fading afternoon light cast long shadows, broken only by the glow of monitoring screens. Warehouse location confirmed. Cole's presence verified. Phase 1 was set. Night fell over the warehouse like a shroud. Marcus and his team moved silently through the darkness, their night vision goggles painting the terrain in ghostly green. Sarah had positioned them strategically. Marcus and Tyrese would breach the loading dock. She and Bobby would take the main entrance. Ezekiel provided overwatch from a nearby rooftop, rifle trained on escape routes. 3 guards north side, Ezekiel whispered through their earpieces. 2 more by the loading dock. Regular patrol every 12 minutes. Marcus checked his watch. 7 minutes until the next patrol. He and Tyrese pressed against the cold metal of a shipping container, waiting. The warehouse loomed ahead, dim yellow light spilling from windows. Bobby's voice crackled through. Security cameras looped. They're blind. Sarah's command was crisp. Execute in 3, 2, 1. Marcus moved first, swift and silent. The guard never saw him coming. One precise strike to the throat, another to the temple. The man crumpled soundlessly. Tyrese handled the second guard with equal efficiency. At the main entrance, Sarah and Bobby neutralized their targets with synchronized takedowns. 4 guards down, no alarms raised. Loading dock clear, Marcus whispered, moving to phase 2. They breached the side door using Bobby's electronic bypass. Inside, stacks of crates, weapon racks, and a makeshift office on a metal platform stretched before them. Marcus spotted Cole through the office window, hunched over paperwork. 6 tangos on the floor, Ezekiel reported. 2 by the weapons cache, 3 near vehicles, 1 on the catwalk. Sarah's voice was steady. Take them. The team moved like shadows. Marcus timed his approach to the catwalk guard. When the man turned, Marcus slipped in a quick chokehold, easing the unconscious body down silently. Below, his team moved with lethal precision. Sarah took down 2 men by the weapons cache with rapid hand strikes. Bobby and Tyrese moved in perfect sync, neutralizing others before alarms could sound. Cole remained oblivious in his office, music playing through headphones. Marcus approached from behind while Sarah covered the door. Through the glass, they saw Cole nodding to his music, unaware. Marcus kicked the door in. Cole spun, reaching for a pistol on the desk. Marcus was faster, his hand clamped around Cole's throat, slamming him against the wall. The gun clattered to the floor. "Hello, Wyatt," Marcus growled. "Remember me?" Cole's eyes widened with fear and recognition. "How did you—" Marcus tightened his grip. "You burned my farm, killed my animals, left hateful messages on my land." His voice was deadly calm, but something didn't add up. Sarah entered, weapon trained on Cole. Bobby and Tyrese secured the warehouse, zip-tying unconscious guards. "This is too organized," Marcus said. "Too well funded. Who's paying you?" Cole struggled, face paling. "I don't know what—" Marcus slammed him harder. "Wrong answer." Okay, Cole gasped. "We got paid good money, more than ever before." "Who?" Sarah demanded. Cole's eyes darted nervously. Some ex-military guy said he had a personal score with Owens, wanted it to look like one of our usual jobs, racial hate stuff. But this was different. Marcus felt a chill. Name? Briggs, Cole wheezed. Called himself Commander Briggs. The name hit Marcus like a blow. He released Cole, stepping back. Sarah's weapon didn't waver. That's impossible, Marcus said. Briggs is dead. Columbia, 8 years ago. Cole shook his head, rubbing his throat. Not dead. Met him face to face. Older guy, military bearing, scary, calm. Had pictures of you. Knew your routine. Said, you owe him a debt in blood. Marcus exchanged a look with Sarah. They remembered Columbia, Operation Ghostblade, the mission gone wrong, the civilian casualties never fully explained. He's lying, Tyrese said from the doorway. No, I swear. Cole's voice cracked with genuine fear. Briggs is alive. He's been planning this for years. Said you took everything from him, so he's gonna take everything from you. Started with the farm, but that was just the beginning. Bobby appeared, laptop in hand. He's telling the truth. Found encrypted communications, old Navy protocols only Briggs would know. Marcus stared hard at Cole, his mind racing. Alan Briggs, his former commander, mentor, the man who taught him everything about being a SEAL, and whose death he'd carried as a heavy burden of guilt. Where is he now? Marcus demanded. Cole shook his head frantically. Don't know. He contacts us through burner phones, different drops, never stays put. But he's out there, and he won't stop until you're dead. Sarah stepped closer, voice low. If Briggs is alive, then everything we thought we knew about Columbia was wrong. Marcus finished her thought. The implications were staggering. A commander they trusted, presumed dead, now pulling strings from the shadows. Cole slumped in his chair, defeated. He said you'd figure it out eventually, said when you did, to tell you something. He swallowed hard. Remember the children of Ghostblade? Dawn crept over Marcus's farmhouse, casting long shadows across the burnt fields. Inside, the team huddled around Bobby's laptops and monitors, faces lit by their blue glow, empty coffee cups scattered. Evidence of a sleepless night analyzing the intel from Cole's warehouse. Look at this, Bobby said, fingers flying across keys. Security footage showed a figure in a dark coat meeting with Cole. Grainy, but the military bearing was unmistakable. Facial recognition gave a 67% match to Briggs's last known photos. Marcus leaned closer, stomach tightening. That's him! Sarah pointed to another screen displaying financial records. Wire transfers through shell companies, all funneling into offshore accounts. He's moving serious money, not just to Cole's group, but to similar ones across 3 states, building a network. Tyrese spread a map marked with red pins. Each pin's an attack on minority-owned farms in the last 6 months, all the same pattern as yours. Ezekiel, silent until now, spoke. He's been testing tactics, perfecting the approach. Your farm wasn't the first, it was the culmination. Marcus stood, pacing the worn floorboards, the weight of the revelation pressed down. I need to tell you about Operation Ghostblade, he said finally. The full story, the part never reported. The team fell silent. Rumors swirled about that mission, but Marcus had never spoken. 8 years ago, deep in Colombian jungle, a high-value target named Santiago Rivera. Briggs was CO. I was lead sniper. His voice was heavy, memories sharp as broken glass. We tracked Rivera for weeks. Intel said he'd meet buyers at a remote compound. Sarah nodded. I remember the briefing. Clean shot, minimal collateral risk. That's what we thought. Marcus stopped pacing, facing the team. I had the shot lined up, Rivera in my scope, but something was wrong. Civilian movement patterns we didn't expect. I radioed Briggs, recommended aborting, but he gave the green light, Tyrese said softly. Marcus nodded. Direct order. Take the shot. So I did. His hands clenched. The intel was bad. Rivera had moved his entire family there. Wife, kids, others. The shot triggered a secondary explosion, the whole building. Bobby pulled up classified photos, destroyed compound, bodies, aftermath. 17 civilians, Marcus continued, including Rivera's family. He took a deep breath. Including Briggs's wife and daughter. They'd been hostages, taken months before. The intel never reached us. Briggs knew they were missing, but never imagined they'd be there. Silence filled the room. The horror dawned on every face. Briggs disappeared after the mission review, Sarah said. They found blood, signs of firefight. Everyone assumed Rivera's men killed him. Marcus finished. But he wasn't dead. He's been planning all these years, building revenge, using hate groups as weapons, turning my own race against me, making it look like simple bigotry while he pulled the strings. Suddenly, Ezekiel stood, incoming transmission breaking through our firewalls. The main screen flickered. An older, weathered face appeared, unmistakably Alan Briggs, his eyes cold, smile cruel. "Hello, Marcus," Briggs said. "I see you finally figured it out. Took you long enough." Marcus stepped forward. "Alan, don't." Briggs's voice cut like steel. "Don't pretend you feel anything but fear right now. You should," Briggs sneered. "You took my family from me, made me watch through your scope as they died. Now, I'm going to take everything from you, slowly, piece by piece." The camera panned to a wall covered with photos. Marcus's farm, his friends, the team, surveillance shots gathered over months. "Your farm was just the beginning," Briggs continued. "I'm going to destroy everything you've built, everyone you care about, and you'll watch it happen, just like I did, helpless, unable to stop it." Sarah stepped up beside Marcus. "You're insane, Alan. This won't bring them back." Briggs laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "This isn't about bringing them back, Sarah. This is about justice, about making him feel what I felt. The children of Ghostblade demand it." Marcus's voice was cold. "The children of Ghostblade were innocent." "This isn't murder, Marcus," Briggs said. "This is war, and I learned from the best. You, the team. All those lessons about precision strikes, using the enemy's weaknesses. I've chosen different weapons. Instead of bullets, I use hatred. Instead of bombs, I use fear." The screen showed more photos, other farms, more victims of the hate group attacks. "Every person I've hurt, every life I've destroyed, their blood is on your hands. And I'm just getting started." Bobby's fingers flew across his keyboard, trying to trace Briggs's signal. Briggs noticed. "Don't bother, Bobby. You taught me well about covering tracks. When I'm ready, you'll find me. Until then." His eyes locked on Marcus. "Watch your back. Watch your friends. You never know which moment will be their last." The screen went black, leaving the team in stunned silence. Marcus gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. The morning sun streamed through the windows, but the warmth couldn't chase away the chill of Briggs's threats. Sarah took charge immediately. "We need to secure the perimeter, now." She pulled out a tablet and drew a quick tactical map. "Bobby, set up motion sensors every 50 yards. Ezekiel, expand drone coverage. We're blind out there." Marcus nodded, military training kicking in. "I've got weapons cached at the Barnes Foundation." He looked at Tyrese. "Help me." Tyrese was already gearing up, checking his pistol. "I'll do a sweep of town," he said, sliding spare magazines into his vest. "Some of those photos Briggs showed, some are recent. He's got eyes on us, meaning he's got people nearby." "Not alone," Marcus said sharply. "We stick together." Tyrese shook his head. "Town's got too many corners, too many witnesses. One man draws less attention. I'll keep radio contact every 15 minutes. He checked his watch. "Mark time now." Sarah stepped forward. "He's right, Marcus. We need intel. Tyrese knows how to stay invisible." She handed him an encrypted radio. "First sign of trouble, you call. No heroics." Marcus didn't like it, but he knew they were right. He clasped Tyrese's shoulder. 15 minutes, 1 second late, and we come in hot." Tyrese grinned, but his eyes were serious. "Keep the coffee hot." They watched from the porch as Teresa's truck disappeared down the dirt road. Bobby was already setting up perimeter sensors while Ezekiel launched a surveillance drone from the backfield. Marcus and Sarah methodically retrieved weapons and ammo from his hidden cache. They transformed the farmhouse into a defensive position, covering angles, establishing fields of fire. The first radio check came right on schedule. "Town looks quiet," Tyrese reported, checking the sheriff's office next. Static cut through his words. "Say again?" Marcus called. "You're breaking up." "Multiple unmarked vehicles, more static. Think I've been made." Sarah was already moving. "Track his signal." Bobby's fingers flew across his laptop. "Got him. 3 blocks from the sheriff's office." Gunfire crackled through the radio, followed by screeching tires. "Contact!" Tyrese's voice was tight. 4 shooters, maybe more." Transmission cut off with a burst of static. Marcus ran to his truck, Sarah right behind him. They peeled out onto the road, gravel spraying. Bobby's voice came through their earpieces. "Taking heavy fire, moving south on Parker Street, multiple pursuers." More gunfire echoed through the town, through their radios and in the distance. "They were still 2 minutes out. Lost his signal," Bobby reported. "Last known position, behind the old hardware store." Marcus pushed the truck harder, taking corners with practiced precision. They screeched to a halt at the hardware store. The street was empty, but fresh rubber marks scarred the asphalt. Shell casings glinted in the morning sun. "Split up," Sarah commanded. "Clear the area. Watch for civilians." They moved with practiced efficiency, checking corners, doorways, any hiding spots. The back alley told the story. Scattered brass, scuff marks in the dirt, signs of a fierce hand-to-hand struggle. A dumpster bore fresh bullet holes. Marcus found Tyrese's radio, crushed and bloody, near a loading dock. Dark stains marked the concrete, still wet. Tire tracks led away, deep impressions suggesting a heavy vehicle. "Marcus!" Sarah called from around the corner. She stood by a white van, side door open. Inside, tactical gear lay scattered, professional-grade military issue. These aren't just local thugs, these are professionals. Marcus inspected their gear. No insignias, but the setup was unmistakable. Private military contractors. Briggs had stepped up his game, hiring experts now. Suddenly, distant sirens echoed. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to move. The sheriff's department will arrive soon, and they're not on our side." Back in the truck, Marcus gripped the steering wheel until it creaked. The image of Tyrese's bloody radio burned in his mind. His oldest friend, the man who had saved him countless times, now in Briggs's hands. "We'll find him," Sarah said firmly, reading his thoughts. "Briggs wants an audience. He'll reach out." Marcus nodded slowly. "But what will be left of Tyrese when he does?" They drove back to the farm in heavy silence. The morning sun felt like a spotlight, exposing their failure. Bobby and Ezekiel met them at the door, faces grim. The attackers used signal jammers, professional tactics, and coordinated teams. This was no random ambush. It was a carefully planned operation. Marcus placed Tyrese's broken radio on the table. The dried blood darkened the device. His voice was steel. "Briggs wanted us to know he can reach us anywhere. Fine. Message received." He looked around the room, meeting each of his team's eyes. "Now, we show him what happens when he takes one of ours." The farmhouse hummed with tense energy. Screens flickered in the dim room. Bobby's fingers danced across keyboards, lines of code reflecting in his glasses. Ezekiel piloted surveillance drones, sweeping every warehouse and industrial site within 50 miles. Sarah called in favors from her old intelligence contacts, drawing on decades of service. Marcus paced, boots carving a worn path in the wooden floor, stopping every few minutes to study the growing web of data, satellite images, property records, power consumption. His jaw clenched tighter with each hour. "Got something?" Bobby finally broke the pre-dawn silence. "Heavy data traffic from an industrial complex outside town. Way more bandwidth than they should need." Sarah leaned over Bobby's shoulder. "Could be streaming video, or could be nothing." Marcus moved closer to the screen. "We can't afford another wild guess." Suddenly the screens went black. When they flickered back, Alan Briggs's face filled every monitor. "Hello, Marcus." Briggs smiled, exactly as Marcus remembered, except his eyes were colder now. "I thought you'd want to see how your friend is doing." The camera panned to Tyrese, strapped to a chair, bloody but conscious, his face swollen, one eye shut, the other glaring defiantly at the camera. Marcus's hands curled into fists. Tyrese spat. "Don't you dare give these bastards anything, Marcus." Briggs's backhand slammed across Tyrese's face. "Bobby," Marcus whispered urgently, "tell me you're tracking this." "Working on it," Bobby muttered, fingers flying, signals bouncing through servers. Briggs produced a knife, testing its edge. "You know, Marcus, I spent years planning this, learning your routines, your weaknesses." He pressed the blade against Tyrese's throat. "Your friends?" Sarah touched Marcus's arm, steadying him. They all knew Briggs wanted to provoke him, to make him lose focus. "Commander," Marcus said evenly, using Briggs's old title, "this is between you and me. Let him go and I'll meet you anywhere." "Oh, but this is between you and me," Briggs hissed, dragging the blade down Tyrese's arm, drawing blood. "You took my family. Now you get to watch as I take yours, one piece at a time." Tyrese didn't scream, but pain twisted his face. "Got a trace," Bobby announced. "Signals from the old Phillips manufacturing complex, 10 miles north." "What else?" Marcus demanded, forcing himself to look away. Sarah spread a satellite map. 3 connected buildings, heavy security, motion sensors, cameras, 24 heat signatures inside. "More mercenaries," Ezekiel added, marking guards from his drone feed. "Professional. They're expecting us." On screen, Briggs continued his methodical torment. "You've got 1 hour, Marcus," Briggs said. "Then we move to power tools." The screen went dark. Marcus stood still, breathing measured. "Bobby, best entry point?" "Loading dock east side," Bobby replied, pulling thermal images. "Blind spot in their camera coverage." "But Marcus," Bobby warned, "this is exactly what he wants. He's waiting." "I know." Marcus gathered his gear. Precise, practiced. 2 mistakes. First, thinking watching Tyrese's torture would break him. He checked his rifle's action, but instead of a simple function test, it reminded him who he truly was. A warrior, forged through countless classified missions. Sarah recognized the cold, precise discipline in his movements. This was Marcus Owens, the man who'd earned his reputation in the most dangerous of places. Then Marcus slammed a magazine home and faced his team, eyes hard as granite. "Briggs trained me. He shaped me into a weapon. Now that weapon's coming for him." He laid out his tactical vest, meticulously checking every piece of gear. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. Briggs had made it personal. Looking each teammate in the eye, Marcus stated, "He succeeded. This is war." The team's resolve hardened. Sarah coordinated their approach vectors while Bobby hacked into the facility's security systems. Ezekiel prepped their vehicles, ensuring multiple escape routes. Marcus donned his combat gear like a second skin, each piece awakening muscle memory from countless operations. But this time was different. This wasn't about orders or country. This was about saving family. He glanced at his watch. 43 minutes remained until Briggs's deadline. Just enough time to arrive and unleash hell. "Gear up," Marcus ordered. "We move in 5. Midnight cast long shadows across the Phillips manufacturing complex. Marcus led his team through Bobby's identified blind spot. Their movements were silent and precise. Security cameras swiveled uselessly overhead, locked in an endless loop thanks to Bobby's hacking. Sarah bypassed the loading dock door electronically. They entered in diamond formation, Marcus on point, Sarah and Bobby covering flanks, Ezekiel watching their 6. Night vision painted their world in ghostly green. Marcus raised his fist, signaling to halt. Ahead, 2 mercenaries passed through an intersection, weapons held professionally. He waited until they were gone, then signaled the team forward. 3 Tangos North Corridor, Sarah whispered through comms. Marcus responded with hand signals. Split and flank. The team divided smoothly, years of training making them a single fluid unit. Marcus and Sarah moved left, Bobby and Ezekiel right. The mercenaries never saw them coming. Marcus struck first, his knife finding the base of the first man's skull. Sarah subdued the second with a chokehold, easing him silently to the ground. Bobby and Ezekiel emerged from the shadows to catch the third. No shots fired, no alarms raised. They pressed deeper into the complex, following Bobby's mapped route toward the video signal's origin. At each intersection, new threats awaited, all eliminated with cold efficiency. Suddenly, gunfire shattered the silence. "Contact!" Marcus shouted, diving behind a concrete pillar as bullets chipped the wall behind him. Sarah's rifle barked 3 times. 2 mercenaries dropped. "Move!" Marcus commanded. They pushed forward aggressively, speed now more important than stealth. Bobby's suppressing fire pinned the enemy while Ezekiel flanked through a side office. More mercenaries poured in from adjoining corridors. Marcus's rifle spoke in controlled bursts. Bodies fell. Shell casings bounced off concrete floors. The smell of cordite filled the air. 2 minutes to target room, Bobby called out between reloads. A grenade bounced around the corner. "Down!" Marcus yelled. The explosion rattled windows and showered them with debris. Through the smoke, Marcus spotted the heavy steel door where Tyrese was held. 2 mercenaries guarded it, wielding belt-fed machine guns. "Cover me!" Marcus sprinted forward as his team laid down suppressing fire. The guards turned weapons toward him. Too late. His first shot hit the left guard's throat. The second and third shots dropped the right guard permanently. Sarah reached the door first, placing breaching charges while the others maintained security. "Ready, breach," Marcus ordered. The door blew inward. Marcus was through before the smoke cleared, rifle sweeping for threats. The room was empty except for Tyrese, strapped to a chair, head slumped forward. "Tyrese!" Marcus rushed to his friend, checking for a pulse. It was there, weak but steady. "Took your sweet time," Tyrese mumbled through swollen lips. "Complain later," Marcus said, cutting the restraints. "Can you walk?" "Hell no," Tyrese grinned, bloodied. "You get to carry my heavy ass." Marcus hoisted Tyrese over his shoulders in a fireman's carry. "Team, we're mobile, let's go." They began their extraction, moving slower now with their wounded teammate. Sarah took point while Bobby and Ezekiel covered the flanks. Multiple contacts converging, Bobby warned, checking his tablet. "They're trying to box us in." An explosion rocked the building, then another. The floor trembled beneath them. "They're collapsing the building!" Sarah shouted urgently. "Move! Move!" Marcus stumbled as another explosion rocked the nearby walls, almost losing his hold on Tyrese. Dust and concrete filled the air, and the support beams groaned threateningly overhead. They ran without caution now, abandoning tactics as gunfire chased them through the maze-like corridors. Bobby stopped briefly to return fire, taking a bullet in his vest, but taking down 3 attackers in the process. "Exit 30 meters ahead," Sarah called out. Just as they reached the door, a final blast threw Marcus forward. He tucked and rolled, shielding Tyrese as they hit the ground outside. Sarah and Ezekiel quickly helped them to their feet, while Bobby kept covering fire as they dashed toward their vehicles. Engines roared to life. Tires screeched on asphalt, and they sped away from the collapsing complex as bullets pinged off their armored panels. "Anyone following?" Marcus asked, cradling Tyrese's head in the back seat. "Negative," Ezekiel replied calmly from behind the wheel. "Clean getaway." The tense silence during the drive back was broken only by Tyrese's ragged breathing. Marcus applied pressure on his friend's worst wounds, silently willing him to hold on. Dawn was just breaking when they pulled up to the farmhouse. Sarah had medical supplies ready. They carried Tyrese inside and began urgent treatment, cleaning wounds, stitching cuts, setting broken fingers. "You look like hell," Marcus said with a tired smile once they finished. "Should see the other guys," Tyrese replied weakly. Marcus squeezed his shoulder gently. "Rest now. You're safe." Stepping out onto his porch, Marcus watched the sunrise with his team. Exhausted, covered in blood and dust, but alive. They'd gotten Tyrese back. For this moment at least, it felt like victory. The kitchen was bathed in soft orange light as Marcus carefully cleaned the last of Tyrese's wounds. His friend winced at the antiseptic, but stayed stoic. Around them, the team moved with purpose. Sarah organizing supplies, Bobby and Ezekiel monitoring surveillance feeds. "Those stitches will leave some nasty scars," Marcus joked, taping a fresh bandage. "Just more stories to tell," Tyrese replied with a weak grin. "Besides, chicks dig scars." Sarah approached with coffee and pain meds. "Here, this should take the edge off. The good stuff." Tyrese swallowed the pills gratefully. Bobby looked up from his laptop. "Briggs's operation is in chaos. That raid hit them hard. We took out at least 15 of his best men and destroyed the complex." Ezekiel checked his phone. "Local news is already covering the explosion. Police can't ignore this." Marcus stretched his sore muscles, determination settling in. "We need to press the advantage. Briggs won't stay down for long." Suddenly, a high-pitched beep cut through the morning quiet. Bobby's eyes widened. "Energy spike, massive electrical surge detected, coming from the world grid." The blast hit like a hammer, shattering windows and throwing everyone to the floor. Heat and pressure rolled through the house in a deafening wave. Marcus's ears rang as he scrambled to his feet. "Everyone out now!" He grabbed Tyrese and hauled him up as more explosions rocked the foundation. Sarah appeared through the smoke, supporting Tyrese's other side. They stumbled toward the door as ceiling beams cracked ominously above. Bobby and Ezekiel were already outside, waving frantically. "The barn!" Bobby shouted. "More charges!" The barn erupted in a massive fireball, sending burning debris raining across the fields. The shockwave knocked them down again. Marcus shielded Tyrese as flaming wood and metal showered them. Secondary explosions tore through the property. The greenhouse disintegrated. The equipment shed blew apart. Even distant storage silos erupted in flames. Years of hard work literally going up in smoke. "The vehicles!" Sarah yelled. "We have to move!" Their trucks exploded simultaneously, turning the driveway into an inferno. Briggs had thought of everything. Marcus watched helplessly as fire consumed his crops. Wheat fields burning like a golden sea, smoke billowing black against the morning sky. Fruit trees he planted just 5 years ago crackled and split in the heat. Everything he built since leaving the service, everything he'd created to find peace, all burning. "Move! Get to the tree line!" Marcus shouted over the roar. They half-carried Tyrese away from the destruction, finally reaching the relative safety of the woods bordering the property. For nearly an hour, they could only watch. Firefighters eventually arrived, but could only contain the blaze. Marcus's farm burned until there was nothing left. When the flames died down, they emerged from the trees. Total devastation. Where Marcus's house had stood for generations, only scorched foundations remained. The fertile fields were ash and cracked earth. Even the old oak tree planted by his grandfather stood as a blackened skeleton reaching to the sky. Marcus walked slowly through the ruins, his boots crunching over twisted metal and shattered glass. Amid the blackened debris, a charred photo frame caught his eye. The wedding picture of his parents, now curled and burned beyond recognition. "Marcus, you need to see this." Bobby's voice was tight with anger as he held up his tablet. A new video message played, filling the screen with Briggs's face, older, harder, but still wearing that cold, cruel smile. "I told you I'd take everything from you just like you took everything from me," Briggs said. "But I'm not done. Meet me at our old training ground. You remember the place. Come alone, or I start targeting your team's families next. Time to end this where it began." The message ended, and Marcus stared at the blank screen, feeling something inside him shift. Grief and shock crystallized into focused rage. "Marcus, we need a plan," Sarah said softly, touching his arm. "No." Marcus's voice was quiet but as hard as steel. "No more plans, no more tactics. He wants me. He gets me." Tyrese, propped against a tree, protested, "You can't face him alone." "That's exactly what he wants," Marcus replied, eyes locked on the smoking ruins of his home. Everything he'd built to escape violence had been destroyed by it. The peaceful life he'd tried to create was now ash and embers. He could feel the warrior he thought he'd left behind stirring again. The patient farmer was gone. What remained was the weapon the Navy had forged. He thinks he's broken me, Marcus said, voice carrying the promise of retribution. He thinks this makes us even. He picked up his rifle from their woodland cache. The familiar weight felt right in his hands once more. The team regrouped at Bobby's hunting cabin, a modest two-room structure hidden deep in Georgia's woods. Marcus sat at the worn kitchen table, cleaning his rifle with mechanical precision, while the others tended to Tyrese's wounds on a makeshift cot. The cabin's single bulb cast long shadows across rough wooden walls. "Your bandages need changing," Sarah said to Tyrese, voice calm but concerned. "These cuts are deep, but they'll heal clean if we keep them covered." Bobby paced near the window, laptop balanced on one arm. Satellite imagery shows recent vehicle activity at the training ground. Briggs is definitely setting up shop there. Ezekiel, studying maps spread across the floor, added, 3 access roads, all easily monitored. He'll see us coming no matter which way we approach. Marcus continued cleaning his rifle, the smell of gun oil mixing with antiseptic and wood smoke from the small stove. "Not us," Marcus said quietly without looking up. "Just me." The cabin fell silent except for the crackle of the stove. "Like hell," Tyrese growled, trying to sit up straighter. "You're not facing that psychopath alone." "He said come alone or he targets your families next," Marcus said, finally looking up. His eyes were hard. "You know he means it. You saw what he did to my farm." "We can set up overwatch positions," Bobby argued. "Stay hidden but close enough to—" "No," Marcus interrupted firmly but gently. "This started between me and Briggs. It ends the same way." Sarah slammed down the medical supplies she was holding. "This is exactly what he wants. He's isolated you, destroyed your home, and now he's trying to separate you from your team. It's tactically stupid. You know it." Marcus set down his cleaning cloth and faced them fully. "You're right. It's what he wants. But sometimes you have to spring the trap to end the game." He looked at each of them in turn. "I need you to trust me like you did in Colombia, like you did in Afghanistan." The weight of their shared combat history hung heavy in the air. They'd all followed Marcus's judgment before, in impossible situations. He'd earned that trust with blood and success. Ezekiel spoke quietly but firmly. "What's your real plan, Marcus? You're not walking in there just to die." "No," Marcus said as he stood, methodically checking his gear. "I'm walking in to end this, but I need you all to do something harder than fighting." "For what?" Bobby asked. "For whatever comes next." Marcus shouldered his pack. "If I don't make it back, you hunt him down. If I do," he managed a grim smile, "we'll need help rebuilding the farm." Tyrese struggled to his feet, ignoring Sarah's protests. Limping over, he grabbed Marcus's shoulder. "Brother, don't do this. Not alone." Marcus pulled his oldest friend into a careful hug, mindful of his injuries. "Some debts can only be paid one-on-one. You taught me that, remember?" Tyrese clenched his jaw, but nodded slowly. They all remembered that night in Kandahar, when Tyrese had gone in alone to face the warlord who'd killed his sister. They trusted him then, and now Marcus had to earn that trust in return. Sarah approached, her anger replaced by fierce determination. "You've got 3 hours before full dark. After that, we move in. Families be damned." Marcus nodded, more time than he needed. The team watched from the porch as Marcus's silhouette slipped into the growing shadows. The sun set behind the trees, painting the sky with blood and gold. Driving an old truck borrowed from one of Bobby's contacts, Marcus took back roads to avoid unwanted attention. The familiar Georgia landscape rolled by, but his mind was already at the training ground, revisiting every detail, planning every approach. The abandoned military complex stood just as he remembered, a sprawling maze of concrete buildings, rusted equipment, and overgrown training courses. The main gate hung open, its chain cut. Marcus parked outside and moved silently on foot, becoming a ghost in the deepening twilight. This was their advanced training ground 20 years ago. Every building, every corner, every sightline was etched in his memory. He could almost hear the echoes of younger men running drills, Briggs's voice barking orders, gunfire cracking on the range. Now it was a tomb of military ghosts, perfect for their final confrontation. As darkness claimed the sky, Marcus ventured deeper into the complex. His boots made no sound on the broken pavement. The wind whispered through empty doorways, but beneath the natural sounds, he caught the faint hum of generators and fresh boot prints in the dust, signs of recent activity carefully hidden. Briggs was here. Marcus could feel his presence like a storm about to break. He paused in the shadow of the main administration building, letting his senses extend into the night. 2 decades of combat told him he was being watched. Somewhere in the darkness, his former commander waited. The game was beginning. Moving like a shadow, rifle ready, Marcus traversed the training compound. Moonlight filtered through broken windows, casting strange patterns on debris-strewn floors. Every step summoned memories, young SEALs running drills, Briggs's commanding voice echoing off concrete, the pride of earning their trident. The air was thick with dust and tension. Marcus's boots crunched softly on scattered glass as he cleared each room with practiced precision. The layout was exactly as he remembered, but everything was stripped bare. Skeletal remains of their former training ground. A faint, metallic click made Marcus freeze. His enhanced hearing, honed by decades of combat, picked up subtle movement above. He melted into the shadow of a doorway, controlling his breathing, becoming one with the darkness. "Welcome home, Marcus," Briggs's voice boomed, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "I knew you'd come alone. Always the honorable one, weren't you?" Marcus said nothing but tracked the voice's origin, noting how it echoed differently from various hidden speakers. Classic misdirection. Marcus hadn't survived this long by falling for basic tricks. "Nothing to say to your old commander?" Briggs taunted. "The man who made you what you are?" A shadow moved on the catwalk above. Marcus fired 2 precise shots, splintering metal where Briggs had stood moments before. The deafening sound filled the enclosed space. Briggs's laugh echoed again. "Still quick on the trigger, just like in Colombia. You want to talk about Colombia? Face to face." "Oh, we will." Briggs's voice dripped with venom. "We'll talk about how you gave the order to fire without confirming the target. How my wife and daughter died because of your arrogance." Something clattered across the floor. A flashbang. Marcus turned away as it detonated, ears ringing. Through the disorientation, he sensed movement behind him. Spinning, he barely deflected Briggs's knife thrust. The blade sliced the air where his throat had been. They crashed together in brutal, close combat, striking with years of lethal training. Briggs was powerful despite age, precise and ruthless. He drove Marcus back with a flurry of blows, rage twisting his face. "You took everything from me." Marcus absorbed a punch to his ribs, countering with an elbow to Briggs's temple. "We were hunting terrorists. Your family wasn't supposed to be there." "They were visiting my brother," Briggs roared, kicking Marcus's knee hard. They separated, circling in the dim light. Blood trickled from a cut above Marcus's eye. Briggs favored his right side where Marcus's elbow had landed. "I've lived with that guilt for 20 years, Marcus said, voice raw. "But you're using it to justify murder, using hate groups to destroy innocent lives. You've become everything we fought against." Briggs charged again, fueled by pure hatred. The 2 men exchanged furious blows, flesh striking flesh, grunts of pain echoing through the empty building, bodies slamming against walls. "Innocent," Briggs spat. "Like my daughter was innocent. She was 12. Marcus was 12. He landed a brutal combination that sent Marcus staggering. I had to identify what was left of them. Marcus recovered, blocking Briggs's follow-up attack and countering with a sweep that took the older man's legs out. They crashed hard onto the debris-covered floor, grappling fiercely, each seeking a submission hold to end the fight. "I see their faces every night," Marcus grunted. "But this won't bring them back. You're just creating more victims." Briggs headbutted Marcus, stunning him momentarily. "Good. Now you know how it feels to lose everything." He wrapped his hands around Marcus's throat, squeezing with murderous strength, wanting Marcus to watch his world burn. Marcus's vision darkened as Briggs's fingers crushed his windpipe, but with desperate strength, he bucked and rolled, breaking free. Both men scrambled up, gasping for air. "You're right about one thing," Marcus wheezed, settling into a fighting stance. "I did make a mistake in Colombia, but I won't make another one tonight." Briggs charged with a roar, abandoning technique for fury. Marcus sidestepped, using Briggs's momentum against him. In one fluid motion, he trapped Briggs's arm and executed a perfect throw, driving him into the concrete floor with crushing force. The impact knocked the wind from Briggs's lungs. Before Briggs could recover, Marcus pinned him, locking one arm behind his back in an unbreakable hold. Briggs struggled, but the position was secure. "Do it!" Briggs growled. "Finish what you started!" Marcus increased pressure, making Briggs grunt in pain. "No, you don't get to die a warrior's death. You're going to face justice for everything you've done." Keeping Briggs pinned, Marcus pressed his knee firmly into the man's back. With his free hand, he pulled out his phone and started recording. "Now, you're going to tell the truth. All of it." Marcus tightened his grip, forcing Briggs to wheeze. "Start with how you survived Colombia." Briggs struggled, but Marcus's hold was unshakable. "You can't prove anything," Briggs spat. "Wrong answer," Marcus said, twisting slightly. Briggs gasped in pain. "The world's going to know exactly what you've become. Start talking." Briggs's bitter laugh echoed off the concrete walls. "You want the truth? Fine. I survived the explosion in Colombia. Woke up in a village 3 days later. When I learned what happened to my family," his voice cracked with rage, "I decided to die that day." Commander Alan Briggs ceased to exist. Marcus kept the camera steady as Briggs continued, venom dripping from his words. "I spent years planning, building networks, finding people to help me destroy you completely. The Sons of Purity were just useful idiots, easy to manipulate with their own hatred. I fed them targets, gave them weapons, pointed them at your farm." "Keep going," Marcus commanded. "Tell them about Sheriff Dade." Briggs laughed darkly. "Easiest one to buy, already corrupt to the bone, money in the right accounts, and suddenly hate crimes disappeared from police reports. Evidence vanished. Witnesses changed their stories. Footsteps echoed through the building. Marcus tensed but held his grip. Sarah emerged from the shadows, weapon trained on Briggs. Behind her, Bobby and Ezekiel secured the perimeter with practiced efficiency. "Couldn't stay away, could you?" Marcus said with a slight smile despite exhaustion. "You really think we'd let you face him alone?" Sarah stepped closer, expression hard as she looked down at Briggs. "We've got the building surrounded. Federal agents are on their way." Briggs struggled. "You think this changes anything? You can't undo what happened." "No," Marcus agreed, eyes never leaving Briggs. "But we can stop you from hurting anyone else." He glanced at Sarah. "Bobby's evidence is already sent to every major news outlet and federal agency." Sarah confirmed. "Sheriff Dade was arrested 10 minutes ago. His deputies are cooperating, turning over everything." Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. Voices and vehicles grew louder outside as law enforcement arrived. Bobby appeared with 2 federal agents, badges gleaming in the dim light. "Commander Alan Briggs," one agent announced formally, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, terrorism, attempted murder, and multiple federal hate crime violations." Marcus maintained his hold while the agents approached with handcuffs. "This is justice, Alan, not revenge. That's the difference between us." As the agents secured Briggs, Marcus slowly released his grip, every muscle aching from the fight. Sarah steadied him with a supportive hand. "The press is outside," Bobby said, joining them. "The whole circus is waiting. Multiple agencies are already fighting over jurisdiction." "Let them fight," Sarah replied calmly. "We've got enough evidence to bury him in any court." They watched as the agents led Briggs away. The former commander walked with his head held high, but his defeat was clear in every step. Outside, camera flashes burst like lightning through the windows. Marcus leaned against the wall, suddenly feeling the weight of every year he'd lived. Any word on Tyrese? Stable, Z reported quietly. Doctors say he'll make it, already asking when he can come home. A small smile crossed Marcus's face, stubborn as ever. More agents entered, photographing evidence and documenting the scene. Marcus's team stayed close, forming a protective circle around their exhausted brother. The farm, Marcus began, thinking of his destroyed home. Is just land, Sarah finished firmly. We'll rebuild it together. Bobby nodded. Contractors are lined up, and the community's rallying too. Amazing what people will do when the truth comes out. Through the main doors, they saw Briggs being led to a waiting vehicle. Reporters shouted questions, cameras recording every moment of his public disgrace. The man who had hidden in the shadows for so long was finally exposed in the harsh light of justice. You did it, Marcus, Sarah said softly. You brought him in alive. Proved you're still the better man. Marcus watched as the vehicle carrying Briggs disappeared into the night, followed by a convoy of law enforcement. We did it, all of us. The team stood together in the empty training compound, each lost in their own thoughts. The building that had once forged their brotherhood had now witnessed its ultimate test. They had faced their past, confronted betrayal, and emerged stronger. Local police began securing the scene with yellow tape. Evidence technicians carefully documented signs of combat, photographing blood spots and collecting samples. The night would be long, full of statements and official reports, but the hard part was over. Should we say something profound? Bobby asked, breaking the heavy silence. Seems like we should mark the moment somehow. Marcus straightened, wincing slightly. Nothing to say. Let's go home. Later, Marcus sat on the edge of a motel bed, his body still sore from the fight with Briggs. The cheap TV mounted on the wall played yet another news report about the scandal. Sarah occupied the room's only chair, while Bobby and Z leaned against the wall, all watching intently. Former Navy SEAL Commander Alan Briggs has been indicted on multiple federal charges, the reporter announced. Sources say his operation extended across 3 states, manipulating hate groups and corrupting local law enforcement. Bobby clicked his tongue. They're still uncovering more. My data dump is keeping investigators busy. Good, Sarah said firmly. Let them follow every thread. The news showed footage of Sheriff Dade being led from the police station in handcuffs, his face twisted with shame. Several deputies had already turned state's evidence, revealing years of covered-up crimes and destroyed evidence. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Tyrese was awake and asking for visitors. He stood carefully, muscles protesting. Need company? Sarah asked, already knowing the answer. I got this one, Marcus replied. Stay here. Keep tracking the fallout. The hospital was only 10 minutes from their temporary base at the Riverside Motel. Marcus found Tyrese propped up in bed, looking better than 3 days ago. The bruises were fading to yellow, and some of the smaller cuts had already scabbed over. About time you showed up, Tyrese grinned weakly. Been watching the news. Looks like we started quite a storm. Marcus pulled up a chair. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, then backed over, then hit again. Tyrese shifted slightly. Doc says I'll make a full recovery, but... He paused, serious. Maybe it's time to really retire. No more operations. No more battles. You sure about that? Marcus asked, though he'd already guessed this was coming. Yeah, Tyrese said, softening. Got enough scars to last a lifetime. Besides, someone's got to help your stubborn ass rebuild that farm. Can't trust you to do it alone. Marcus felt a weight lift. The idea of Tyrese finding peace, staying safe, felt right. Could use the help, he admitted. A knock interrupted them. Marcus turned to see Reverend Williams, leader of the largest black church in town, standing in the doorway. Behind him were James Chen, owner of the local hardware store, and Maria Rodriguez from the Hispanic Community Center. Mr. Owens, Reverend Williams said solemnly. May we come in? Marcus nodded, curiosity softening his guarded expression. The 3 community leaders entered, their faces a mix of shame, and determination. "We've come to apologize," Reverend Williams began. "For years, we saw the signs, the harassment, the threats, the accidents that were never investigated. We stayed silent, told ourselves it wasn't our problem." James Chen stepped forward. "We were wrong. What happened to your farm should have united us all. We should have stood together long ago," Maria Rodriguez added firmly. "But we're here now. The community is organizing. We've started a rebuild fund for materials, labor, equipment, whatever you need." Marcus studied their faces, sensing genuine remorse and resolve. "This isn't just about my farm," he said carefully. "No," Reverend Williams agreed. "It's about real change. Sheriff Dade's replacement is already working with federal investigators. The county commission is forming an oversight committee. We want you involved." Maria continued, "Your voice matters. Your experience matters." From his hospital bed, Tyrese chuckled softly. "They're right. You can't hide out on that farm forever." Marcus stood slowly, meeting each of their eyes. "I appreciate the offer, all of it, but rebuilding isn't just about fences and buildings." "We know," James said quietly. "That's why we're here. Real change takes all of us working together." Maria smiled. "My brother's company will handle the heavy equipment. James has donated materials. My congregation makes excellent work crews and the best food for hungry volunteers." Something shifted inside Marcus. Not just hope, but real possibility. The isolation he'd lived with for so long was breaking, revealing a community ready to stand with him. "All right," he said finally, "let's do this right. Build something that lasts, together." Reverend Williams extended his hand. Marcus took it firmly. Together, Tyrese watched with satisfaction. Now that's what justice looks like. Not just taking down the bad guys, but building something better. The room buzzed with plans and schedules, lists of materials and volunteers. Outside, the Georgia sun shone bright and clear. The land Briggs tried to poison with hate was becoming something new, not just a farm, but a symbol of unity. "First priority," James said, "is rebuilding your house before the rainy season." "No," Marcus corrected gently. "First priority is making sure everyone knows they're welcome. Every color, every background. That's how we really win." The others nodded in agreement. They understood this moment was about more than construction. It was about building bridges, healing wounds, and creating a community that would stand strong against any future threats. 6 weeks later, the morning sun painted long shadows across Marcus's rebuilt farm. Hard work had transformed scorched earth into hopeful promise. Fresh wooden fences lined newly plowed fields, and a new barn frame stood tall against the Georgia sky. Marcus knelt in the rich soil, hands deep in the earth, preparing to plant the first row of corn. Beside him, Tyrese worked carefully, still stiff but determined. Sarah, Bobby, and Ezekiel spread out along the row, each tending their own section. Around them, dozens of community members worked in groups, planting, carrying supplies, setting up tables for the afternoon gathering. James Chen directed a team installing irrigation pipes, while Maria's crew painted the last touches on a storage shed. Reverend Williams moved between groups, offering encouragement and cold water. "Never thought I'd see the day," Tyrese said quietly, patting soil around a seedling. "All these people coming together like this." Marcus nodded, surveying the diverse crowd. "Change comes when people decide to make it happen." Sarah paused, wiping sweat from her forehead. "The foundation paperwork came through yesterday. The Red Clay Initiative is officially registered." "Good timing," Bobby added, planting seeds with mathematical precision. 3 veteran farming groups have already asked how they can help. Nearby, Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor who'd brought lunch for volunteers every day, called from the new porch, "Food's ready for anyone who's hungry." Workers gathered under the shade trees, where tables were set up, sharing smiles, stories, and hope. Marcus stood up, brushing dirt from his knees as he took in the lively scene around him. Children played happily between tables, while adults from every corner of the community shared food, stories, and laughter. "Time to make the announcement?" Sarah asked, stepping up beside him. Marcus nodded. "Might as well do it while everyone's here." Reverend Williams noticed Marcus moving toward the center and gently called for attention. The crowd hushed, all eyes turning expectantly his way. "First," Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly across the yard, "I want to thank everyone who helped rebuild this farm, but what we've created here is about more than just buildings and fences." He gestured broadly at the gathered crowd. "Look around you. This is what community looks like. This is what strength looks like, and this is only the beginning." Marcus motioned for his team to join him. "Today, we're proud to announce the creation of the Red Clay Initiative, a foundation dedicated to supporting veterans and minority farmers across the country. We'll provide resources, training, and support to those who want to work the land but face barriers because of who they are or where they come from." A wave of approval rippled through the crowd. Marcus continued, "What happened here? The hatred, the violence. It wasn't just about me. It was about trying to keep us divided, to keep us afraid. But look what happened instead." He pointed to the new barn. Every beam of that barn was raised by hands working together, every fence post set by neighbors helping neighbors. That's the real power, not hatred, not violence, but unity. James Chen stepped forward. "The hardware store is committed to supporting the initiative. We'll provide materials at cost for any projects you undertake," Maria added firmly. "My construction company will handle heavy equipment needs." Reverend Williams declared, "The church will coordinate volunteers, whatever's needed, whenever it's needed." Momentum built as more people spoke up, offering help, resources, and ideas. It was more than Marcus had imagined weeks ago, standing amid the ashes of his old life. The initiative's first project, Marcus announced, will be helping Thomas Washington restore his family farm over in Miller County. He's a Vietnam vet who's been fighting for closure. We start next week. Heads nodded around the yard. They all understood this was about more than one farm or one community. This was about transforming the landscape, literally and figuratively. The gathering turned into an impromptu planning session, groups forming to discuss logistics, resources, and schedules. Marcus stepped back, watching as his neighbors embraced the mission, making it their own. Tyrese appeared at his side, grinning. "Look at you, starting a movement." "We started a movement," Marcus corrected with a smile. "All of us." Sarah joined them, followed by Bobby and Ezekiel. Together, they watched the energy and enthusiasm spread across the crowd. "It's more than justice," Sarah observed quietly. "It's transformation, from ashes to action," Bobby added with his trademark dry smile. As the afternoon sun cast golden light across the newly planted fields, Marcus and his closest friends stood at the edge of the property, surveying the rebuilt farm, the fresh earth, and most importantly, the people working together to build something meaningful. A deep satisfaction settled in Marcus's chest. The land once scarred by hatred now promised new growth, new possibilities, and new connections that would reach far beyond these acres. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Meanwhile, I've handpicked 2 stories I think you'll love. Have a great day.